And there we were there with Dan Tucceri, and it was a beautiful interpretation there of Claude Debussy's Clair de Lune, and it says here it was recorded in the streets of Melbourne. And first up we had Fall Into Love and Surrender Now by Dan's band Limnal. And that's a demo. I think they're going to record sometime this year, but we shall find out very shortly. I have Dan on the line right now. How you going, mate?
Yeah, man, just ding-a-ling-lang and my dang-a-long-ling-long. I got to say, it was pretty cool to hear Ministry, Jesus Built My Hot Rod before those two songs. So they're one of my favourite bands, I just wanted to say, actually.
Well, that's the reason why I played them, mate, because I know they're one of your favourite bands, so I thought if you were in the studio, you probably would have played one of their songs anyway at some point, so I thought I'll just chuck on that classic, you know.
It probably would have ended up being the Ministry show right back to their early pop days. So I actually got the interview Al just the other day, which is crazy.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's doing new things, but nothing beats the old Ministry, I reckon.
For sure. But I guess we got so much to discuss. You got so many projects on the go at the moment, as we were just discussing before, like super busy. But let's start off with the Brian Hooper stuff. Like you've been playing a few shows with Hoops over the last kind of 12 months or so. Mostly, like I've noticed down at the Lyrebird, and you did some Velvet Morning recently, or that's coming up as well. And tell us what it's been like playing with Brian Hooper, mate.
It's been great, you know. It's that old cliche. It's been a real learning experience, but it kind of has, because they're Brian's songs. They're his babies, and you got to sort of treat them with respect. And usually when you do classical music and you got all that technical stuff and virtuosity, it's real easy to sort of get distracted away from 4 or 5 chords and kind of have to stick with the song. You want to sort of embellish it more when you probably need to. But I've learned to hold back and, play to the song, sort of have respect for it. But I've enjoyed it. I really enjoy playing with Brian, and we sort of met doing a soundtrack, which was unexpected, how that worked. I never thought we'd be recording Arabic music in a rock and roll sort of environment for a movie soundtrack, and then doing solo shows after that. Sort of crazy how it worked out.
For sure. What kind of role do you have on stage with Brian? Like, what kind of style of piano are you playing with Brian? Because I haven't had a chance to come and see you guys yet.
I think what Brian prefers is to play with someone up there. Whether it's a full band or if it's just a duo sort of setting. I think he likes someone to sort of round out the sound. Maybe to deflect a bit of the attention, I don't know. Maybe it feels more secure for him. I can't really say, but I'm there to sort of back up the guitar. And I try and play in a way where I'm sort of doing like a proper bass line in the left hand of the piano, or being a bit more percussive, being like a bit more definite with rhythms in between both hands. Whereas if I had a full band there, I'd probably just be playing really simple chords. I wouldn't be doing stuff like that. I wouldn't want to get in the way of the bass guitarist or drummer. So, I mean, that's the way I see it, sort of taking on the role of each member of a band, but keeping each role really simple within myself, so it doesn't sound like you're hearing, a Beethoven sonata while he's, doing a 4-chord sort of song.
For sure. And Brian's been pretty busy lately as well. Like, I've seen all the photos up on Facebook of you guys in the studio at Incubator Studios, doing some recordings with Mick Harvey, JP Shiloh, Andrew Watson on the violin, and yourself. Yeah. Tell us a bit about what's been going on there, like kind of where the songs are going, and what can we expect from this kind of album, do you think? Or what can you say about it?
Well, it was a real sort of surprise to me to be asked, and, a lot of serendipity involved, because Adrian, the engineer, the guy who owns Incubator, I've known him since I was 15 when I recorded my first couple of demos by myself and with my bands and whatever. So, to sort of cross paths with Brian, and then it turns out he's recorded with Adrian before, and it was just this, happy little knitting circle. And it was pretty cool to be part of that, and you got people like JP and Mick walking in the studio, and then Andrew adding his violins. I think Brian basically said, just come in and we'll write some songs, and we'd sit there and sort of work through something. Does it sound good, Brian? No, not really. Try this, Dan, and vice versa. And he's pretty open-minded, and we both sort of settled on something sounding good. It's just, I guess the typical songwriting process. And then we go from that and having the basis of a song, and JP and Mick Harvey would come in and add their drums and contributions, and then, later in the night we'd sort of crack out the wine, sit there and just jam. And Brian would do freestyle sort of vocals, and then he'll probably consolidate them later. I'm not sure what he'll do with them. There's still a bit more work to be done. We actually managed to slip in a David Bowie cover, but I won't say which one. It's a bit of an obscure one.
Okay.
It's a bit of it's really surprising how some of it turned out. I don't think it's what many people would expect, and I don't really think it sounds entirely like anything Brian's done previously.
How's just briefly, how's Mick Harvey been in the studio working with him? I mean, he has such a legacy as kind of a studio musician and as a producer and as a kind of a recorder and stuff. What's it been like, just briefly, hanging out with Mick?
Mick and Brian and, JP, Hugo Race and Kim Salmon, all these guys I've worked with in the past. Only recently, it sort of made me realise that they're sonic architects. They can pretty much walk up to any instrument, any machine, even something that isn't an instrument. They can make it sound good. They can make it work. They can elicit the best sound out of it. That's the sort of common thread that all of them have. They've got a real ear for that sort of thing, and an ability to just walk up to something, do it in one or two takes, and it's done. You've got to be pretty efficient. There's no pressure, there's no stress, there's nothing like that. But there's efficiency. It's this unspoken thing. It's sort of implied. And, they're pretty cool guys. It's pretty flattering, and I'm pretty grateful for it to sort of, have guys who are about, 40, 50 years old, invite me to work with them. It's a pretty cool thing. And they're pretty easygoing. It was just, like a bunch of friends just sitting back, making songs and having a bit of wine. It was pretty cool.
Sounds great, mate. That's for sure. And like as we were discussing at the start of this interview, you got quite a few projects on, and another one is that I've participated in before too is the Melbourne Drone Orchestra, and you just announced a gig the other day at the Northcote Uniting Church on Saturday, the May the 7th at 4 p.m. And tell the listeners that missed out on the last time I had you on, and we played a bit of the Drone Orchestra. I didn't make it to the Rat experimental gig. Tell us a bit about that project, mate, and that gig.
The Melbourne Drone Orchestra is pretty much an idea, and it's just kept going and going. It's sort of like an idea or a joke or whatever, or something that someone says off the cuff, and then it just keeps going and building momentum, and then it becomes a bit too real and unwieldy. And I guess that happened at the last concert we did where we managed to cut the power. You were there in Ballarat, which is awesome. And that was only 13 guitarists, I think. It sort of started an off-the-cuff conversation with one of the participants, Liam Brewer from Aghanim. He was saying how he wanted to make the Melbourne Doom Orchestra. And the idea was we'd all get on the steps of Parliament House with like 20 drum kits, 50 guitars, 1,000 basses, whatever it takes to just drown out Melbourne in doom metal. And I thought that was pretty cool, but I wasn't sure about how we go about getting a permit. And then I sort of thought, what about the Melbourne Drone Orchestra? And I put my hand up to curate a live music event called Musikkunst by Piers Morgan. And it was all about improvisation. I said to him, let's do one that revolved around extreme metal, So we had another black metal band I'm in called Plasmodium, which is just purely improvised. And then I thought, let's do this drone orchestra thing. It's at the Great Britain Hotel. It's underground. No one's going to really worry about noise or sound because it's just surrounded by bluestone walls. So let's just do this. Let's just put the word out and see how many people want to participate. And I'm thinking, let's try and get 20 people or whatever. But only 6 agreed. Only 6 people were crazy enough to go, let's do this. Let's see how loud we can go. And it sounded pretty cool, and then we did another gig with 5, and then we did another one with 15 and 13, and we it's really hard to sort of find the right space to do this, not only for the sake of noise restrictions, but also, some places, it just isn't the right setting. It's not a pub rock gig sort of thing. So I booked church this time, and I wanted to work with a pipe organ, and I want to work with the acoustics, which are inherent to a church, and put as many guitars in there. And then, last thing I see is we put it on Facebook just yesterday, and it's sort of gotten a great response. It looks like there'll be a lot of people, and it looks like a lot of people want to be part of it. So,
yes, I think on Facebook, mate, it's like got up to over 150 people so they're going on the Facebook event. It's just an amazing response in a couple of days. It's really great.
It's crazy. It's sort of, but then again, it is Facebook. I mean, what's the old trick? You sort of...
Yeah, that's right.
Do you halve it and then divide it by 10, or do you divide it by 10 and halve it? And that's the real... I mean, who knows? But I've got a good feeling about it, and there's a lot of people who want to participate, and it's always a bit scary. It's like, okay, geez, how loud is this going to go? But, it's just done for the sake of an idea. It's just this insane idea, and I've tried to live like that. I have this crazy idea, and I'm going to do it. And it's maybe a character flaw, I don't know, but I've had, when I say something has happened or is going to happen, and there's a bit of scepticism, it'll happen. It'll happen for the sake of it, for better or worse. So hopefully not too many people go deaf.
Well, hopefully they do.
Hopefully I do. Maybe, yeah.
I was actually, the first thing I thought about because it's going to be in the Uniting Church, which it's such a great community there. I've seen 1 or 2 gigs there, and they seem to be really applicable to putting on any kind of event if you present them with a good idea and stuff. So kudos to the people at the Northcote Uniting Church. But the first thing I thought of, mate, was all those amps in there just shattering all the stained glass windows and stuff. I thought that'd be amazing to get on film.
That's a possibility. I never thought about that, so I'd better talk to my insurer or something like. Maybe I should get insurance for this. But it's sort of funny on the topic of the church. I've had a couple of people have a go at me and say, because I do classical concerts, like, why are you booking churches? Why are you giving money to the churches and little institution? And I've got a problem here and there with, actually a lot of the things that have come out in the Royal Commission, obviously, but when people look at it, where the money's going, what it's going toward, and then I'd say, well, every chocolate bar you buy, there's someone getting screwed over in the world. Every time you do banking, there's someone getting screwed over. Every time you buy a cigarette, there is someone getting screwed over. And, I've got to say that the church community, every time I've gone in there and done a concert, whether it's classical or something like this, they've been extremely accommodating, extremely welcoming, open-minded, occasionally maybe a bit bemused, but they're pretty cool. They're pretty decent people. That's, all I can say on that matter. The Uniting Church is pretty open to a lot of these sorts of things, and they've been good to work with.
So for all listeners out there, go check out the Melbourne Drone Orchestra. It's on, if you go on to Facebook and write in Melbourne Drone Orchestra, and it's on the Saturday, the May the 7th at 4 p.m. at the Northcote Uniting Church. As I said, there's over 150 people said that they're apparently going on the Facebook event. So make sure you get down and check that out. And another project, like I just played one of your songs, demos before, Fall Into Love and Surrender Now. Your project is Limnal. Tell us a bit about the genesis of and the idea behind that band and its kind of future projection, I guess, over the next kind of 12 months, mate.
Well, it's kind of funny how that came together. Like, there's just so much backstory to it. But long story short, I've had some of these songs since I was about 14, 15, 16. So some of them are like, well above 10 years old. And I've been in heaps of bands, outside of metal or whatever, but, heaps of other bands which are a bit more straightforward. And it sort of hasn't kind of worked out because I'll be the guy in the room who's like firing off all these ideas and this and that. and then it sort of comes across as an autocracy or a dictatorship. So with Limnal, I actually caught up with a friend of mine, Michael Palazzo, and we hadn't seen each other for years or really worked together in a band for years. And I said to him, look, I've got these songs, I know exactly what I want to hear, I know exactly how I want it to go. Are you cool with that? And he was. And he liked what he heard, and he was getting behind it. And I said, I should mention that apart from these sort of folky acoustic songs, which are sort of like Deaf in June mixed with Jeff Buckley, I've got all these doom songs, these sort of drone doom songs, and he liked those too. And then there's all these sort of black metal, thrashy sort of songs, and then there's sort of post-rock, real straightforward Pixie-sounding stuff. Like, it's a real mixed bag. And at the moment, we're focusing on the acoustic sort of folky stuff. We've got a drummer called Dino from Christ Crusher, a grindcore band, and he's just added an element of heaviness, so it sounds a bit more like Dinosaur Jr. We've had to turn our amps up. We're a lot louder, but, it's not power chords and it's not just thrashing. It's actually pretty melodic, and it's sort of involved harmonically. And I guess we're hoping to do a bit of pre-production in May, and then maybe record within 12 months after that. We really want to nail it as soon as we go in the studio and go, this is exactly how we want it to sound, and then just go for it. Maybe move on to the next phase, I don't know, or just keep making more songs in that vein. It's really hard to say, but we got a gig on Sunday night at Mr. Boogeyman Bar with the Night Collectors, and then we've got one on April the 21st. It's a Thursday night at the Old Bar. We'll be supporting Brian Hooper and Danny Walsh.
Great. And where do you reckon you're going to record, mate? At Incubator, or what's your angle on the recording and all that kind of thing?
Definitely Incubator for this. I'm sort of got different options in a sense that, I did this black metal thing a few months ago at Fuller's at Goat Sound, and with these songs, because I've had them since I was a teenager, and I was talking about Adrian before at Incubator, he knows what I'm after. He's known me for over 10 years, so I want that to sort of happen. And then you never know if Mick or Brian are around. They're all friends, and when you're friends with each other, or at least you know each other pretty well, you're going to be open with each other. You're going to be honest, and there's no bullshit. They're going to say, you could try this, try that. There's no hard feelings. And, it's good to sort of work with Adrian because I've known him for that long, and, he's heard some of these songs. He recorded that demo that you just played before, which was done in a day.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to find that communion with a producer or recorder, and also that honest collaboration, as you said, between musicians. It's really hard to find. It's only something that kind of gets established through time,
Well, there's so much ego involved. I mean, you actually think about it. You've created something, or someone, your bandmates created something, and they're hearing they're hearing something great in it, and they're playing with all their heart to you. And then you got to look them in the eye and say, I'm not really into that. I mean, that's where you got to know someone pretty well, or go back a long way to sort of know they're saying that. It's not an affront to your ego. And I get that too. Sometimes I'll put something together and I go, this is pretty cool, and then I'll play it, and someone goes, you've done better. And I got to say, actually, my parents, my mum's like that. We did this gig a few months ago, and she goes, the song sounded amazing. She actually came and checked it out because I thought she'd like that kind of music. And then she goes, but the singing was really off. The singing was just off. And I go, yeah, it was. I couldn't hear myself. And I like that honesty. I've sort of been raised with it, and I'll dish it out. Some people like it, some people don't. If they don't, well, didn't mean to hurt your feelings.
Fair enough. And Limnal got a gig coming up with Brian Hooper on the 21st of April at the Old Bar, and that's with Danny Walsh.
Stretching myself thinly that night, but you get twice as many free drinks.
And I've also got Limnal and I are going to be sharing a stage on the 28th of May for my yet to be announced Devil in the West fest kind of thing. We've got about 8 bands playing, so Limnal going to be playing, Bunyip, myself, War Pigs, Agon Hymn, Fuchsia, Trappist Afterland, and Clive of India. So it's going to be a bit of a mixed bag day on the 28th of May. at the
I
Rev.
didn't know that was the full lineup, so that sounds awesome. You know, especially I love Aghanim, you know, and War Pigs are another great band. And the thing about both those bands is no one is really doing what they're doing. Aghanim, they've got this record, Blues Grind, and it's probably, you know, one of my favourite records of all time. And that's such a big call, especially it's a local band, you know, but I put it up there with anything else out there, so that's cool.
Yeah, they're a great band, yeah. I was really happy when Dave kind of said yes, he had the time, and I'm looking forward to the day. It's going to be sick.
Yeah, it's going to be perfect.
And I guess kind of the last thing we can want to touch on is the gigs that you got coming up this weekend. So it's
man.
the Solstice performances with Matthew Fagan. They're kind of a classical performance, and it's going to be Melbourne this Friday, the 8th of April, at 7:30 p.m. at Testing Grounds in South Bank, and Woodend on Saturday, the 9th of April, at 7:30 p.m. at St Ambrose Hall in Church in Woodend, and the Sunday, the 10th of April, at 2 p.m. at the Forest Street Uniting Church in Bendigo. And you can find all the Solstice events on Facebook. If you write in Solstice and then write in Daniel Tucceri or whatnot, you should be able to find it. And so tell us a bit about this kind of part of your life, mate, because, like, you know, you play classical piano on the streets of Melbourne. That's kind of one of the constant performance things that you do, and you've been doing these Solstice gigs kind of the last 12 months or so. And tell us a bit about what's going to happen this weekend, mate.
I think it's going to be pretty special, you know, always when you play with Matthew. You know, you got this sort of flamenco, Spanish improvised classical guitar playing, and then you got the classical piano, and it's not a duo you see very often. And some of the pieces we're doing are, you know, pretty tough. All I can say is you're probably going to hear an approach to orchestral pieces that, you know, other instruments wouldn't quite achieve. Like the piano really is like having an orchestra at your fingertips, and the guitar, the way he uses it, it almost sounds like, you know, 2 or 3 guitars playing at once, and then he's got his synthesizer. And we work with, like, those little things, little synthesized elements and sound effects, and I guess to sort of take it towards the future. That music is just so ages old. We sort of go through every period of musical history, or, you know, and find music right back, someone like Vivaldi, and then going all the way to modern composition like Rodrigo. And even the imagery associated with the band, the idea of the solstice and, you know, using pagan imagery and all these things in sort of the aesthetic of the band. We're looking back even further, sort of the ancient times, and then sort of melding that with improvisation, synthesizers and, you know, electronics. Not in a way that overwhelms the music, but sort of augments it, sort of, you know, takes it to the 21st century, I suppose. That's what I like about it, that sort of approach, sort of time travelling.
For sure, and you're going to be doing, as you mentioned, you're going to be doing interpretations of Vivaldi and Bach, and you're also going to be doing Beethoven classic, the Fifth Symphony. Tell us a bit about how you've approached that one. Is that one with kind of, you've got some more electronic elements in that one too, or is that mainly just the guitar and the piano?
It depends, you know, it depends. Sometimes I'll sit there, I've got all these sound effects at my disposal, and then I go, no, I'm just going to play piano all the way through. Sometimes we'll have it to introduce it, and then we'll do something like Pink Floyd and meld that in to the Fifth Symphony, which is, it's kind of crazy, but it works. But, you know, the thing with that, on a technical level, one thing which really took me aback, I started having piano lessons again for the first time in like 10 years, just a few months ago. And one of my teachers was Alan Kolgasovsky, you know, he's a brilliant pianist, you know, amazing with Chopin. And the way I was playing it, he said, look, you got to simplify, you got to sort of almost dumb it down. You know, for most of the song, I'm actually only using 2 fingers on each hand. And it just appears more difficult. And, you know, that's the effort, I think, that goes into classical music. That was the appeal for me. It really, you've got to address every aspect of your playing, physical, breathing, relaxation. And, even saying, well, let's simplify this, and how can I physically make this work? You know, if you don't have the right technique, you're going to make life very hard for yourself, as I was, because, you know, mostly I was just looking at the sheet music and going through it. I wasn't really thinking about what I could be doing better. So, you know, that's what I love about Solstice and classical music, the amount of work you got to put into it. Even if you don't quite reach the mountain, even if there's mistakes, or you're always sort of doing that, I can feel that I've improved in all these other areas, you know, at least as a musician. And it informs the other music. It informs Limnal, like the kind of chords I write and the kind of melodies. It informs the stuff with Brian Hooper, like, you know, working as an orchestral or band accompaniment to his singing. And even the black metal stuff, it's like, well, let's use these really strange tones and these ideas I've gotten from classical, you know, and something like Mussorgsky, which is really dark, really heavy. How can I sort of put that, you know, into this sort of heavy metal, this sort of extreme metal music?
It sounds like your heart kind of that is classical music, and that kind of informs everything else you do. What is in the current contemporary kind of world? You know, you being on kind of the front line in some respects, like the most humble performing, performance art of being a busker, and you being playing classical music. What's the importance of bringing classical music to the streets for you, and sharing that with people for, you know, it's almost kind of like some sort of spiritual act in a way. There isn't necessarily a lot of monetary reward, and kind of sharing beauty with a whole bunch of strangers that just a lot of the time just walk past. And, you know, tell us a bit about that experience.
Well, I think with classical, when I started busking, the thing was everyone was saying, pick up your guitar and do stuff that people want to hear. And I'm thinking, I think you got to give people more credit. You know, it's easy to think everything's gone down the toilet. We're in this cult of anti-intellectualism, you know, and music and art and even writing, the written word reflects that. You know, everything's fallen to crap. But I think maybe there has been a dumbing down. But when you sort of show people this classical music, I've had people from all walks of life, people who I thought was, you know, a couple of occasions going to kick my head in or have a go at me, say, hey, that was pretty cool, man, appreciate it. I'm thinking, whoa, okay, don't judge a book by its cover. And I think there is a definite cultural ignorance. There's, you know, the ordinary... we've been getting more and more ignorant because we've got machines. We've got machines that do things for us, and that involves creating music. I mean, if we're going to really extend that, let's go back 1,000 years. The common astronomical knowledge of the sky and the stars and what it all meant and how it could be used was far greater than it is now. And yet, you know, if you go to university and study it, you can advance that. You'll be light years ahead, you know, pardon the pun. But it's the same with music. If you go back, say, 1,000 years and you look at the villages, how did people entertain themselves? There's no TV, there's no radio. Just that sort of folk music, if it's a Romanian gypsy or an Italian Napolitana band or whatever it is, in those villages, and even down south in America, you know, bluegrass, the virtuosity of the common man was there. It was inherent. And I think everyone has that capacity. We've just got these, you know, weapons of mass distraction, I suppose. They're just everywhere, and it's understandable and it's unavoidable. But I guess when you see this on the street, and I'm not putting myself up on a pedestal or nothing, because I'm doing this because primarily I love it. And if you happen to love it, that's great, and that spurs me on more, and it's this nice mutual thing. But to see someone doing this on the street goes to show that you don't need to just go to a concert hall or a university or pay $100 a ticket to sort of, you know, imbibe yourself, you know, with the very, very wine of fine music. You know, it's there, and it can be found. And I think it's the way we're using technology, where we've got synthesizers which have all these great sounds. You can make a song in 2 seconds. You can also use the internet to download sheet music. You can also download tutorials on how to teach yourself piano or teach yourself anything. And you can use that to sort of strive, to sort of go above and beyond. You know, maybe it's a bit lofty, but, you know, I sort of looked at someone like Zappa. He's not a musical influence, a huge one, but, you know, he said there's a lot to be said for self-teaching, autodidacticism. we're in a strange place. I think we're coming to grips with technology and how that impacts on music, art and culture. Well, I guess it remains to be seen. But while that's happening, while we're understanding it, I sort of like to keep it simple. Just put it on the street. It's there. If you dig it, come to a concert or, have a CD and immerse yourself in that. It should be easy for people. It should be accessible. It shouldn't seem lofty. It shouldn't seem out of reach.
It kind of, it reminds me, the kind of paradox, it reminds me of a quote by Beethoven, actually, where he says that something like the music is the one entrance into a higher world of knowledge which comprehends mankind, but which mankind cannot comprehend. And it's like the moment of knowing that, in a way, that we have to surrender to doubt as a human person and mystery, rather than kind of all this, constant arrogance of thinking we know everything and, trying to impose order on a world which is intrinsically perfect as it is, And I think that you on the street, when I see you on the street, and I think I saw you once or twice, actually, before I even met you. Yeah. And it was like there's this kind of world going past you as you're playing this very beautiful, transportative music, that if a person took a moment out of their day to just listen to that, then they would be in the mystery of what it is to actually be human and to the ancient aspect of what it is to be a part of this planet, So, thank you for that, mate. I think that's a gift for sure. And if you want to check out Dan playing with Matthew with doing some classical kind of stuff, it's called Solstice, and it's going to be this Friday, Saturday and Sunday. Friday in Melbourne, Saturday in Woodend, and Sunday in Bendigo. So you can check that out on Facebook as well. And I'm going to leave you, mate, with your cover of the Death in June song "Fall Apart" by Limnal. Tell us a bit about why you chose this song, and any parting words that you might have for listeners out there.
I think the last two words, two lines in this song, I think the way it frames a very simple statement and extended upon that and gave it, I guess, more intensity. It was, to love is to lose and to love is to die, and that implies basically to love is to die. And I love how he sort of, extended that. Death in June's been a big influence, and this song is really simple. It's just 3 chords, but, that was a bit of a turning point, hearing artists, these kind of musicians who are doing a lot with very little. And it sort of made me go, okay, it doesn't all have to be arpeggios and super fast scales and a million chords. It can be quite simple. And, I love this little song. It sort of hits me pretty hard. So I hope I did it justice. But this was just off the demo. I sort of did this whole thing solo, and we won't be playing this live. I think it's just recorded as it is, and, I'd just like to have it that way, I suppose.
Awesome. Well, this is a track by Dan's band Limnal, which you can go on Facebook and like the page and follow the band. That's Limnal. And keep an eye out for the Melbourne Drone Orchestra also, which is going to be on Saturday, May 7th at 4 p.m. at the Northcote Uniting Church. And once again, Solstice in Melbourne, Friday, 8th of April at 7:30 p.m. at the Testing Grounds in South Bank. Woodend, Saturday, 9th of April, 7:30 p.m. at the St Ambrose Hall Church. And Bendigo is Sunday, the 10th of April at 2 p.m. at the Forest Street Uniting Church. And thank you so much, Dan, for the chat this evening. Highly appreciate it, mate. I'm sure we'll do it again sometime.
Too good. I really enjoyed this chat, mate. So thanks for having me on. And look forward to playing together. It's going to be great.
For sure. And here it is, Fall Apart, a Death in June cover, demo by Limnal. Cheers, mate.
Thanks, mate.
wake from dreams, shall I fall in pastures? Will I wake the darkness? Shall we toss the earth? And if I wake from dreams, shall we find the emptiness and break the silence and we'll stop our hearts? And if I wake from dreams, shall we cry together for the howling echoes and restart the night? Why did you say that things would fall and fall and fall and fall and fall apart? Why did you say that things would fall and fall and fall and fall and fall apart? And shall I wake from dreams for the glory of nothing, for the cracking of the sun, for the crawling down of ice? And if we fall from dreams, shall we push them into the darkness and stare into the howling and then clamber into night? And if I fall from dreams, all my prayers are silence. To love is to lose, and to lose is to die. Why did you say that things would fall and fall and fall and fall and fall apart? Why did you say that things would fall and fall and fall and fall and fall apart? Why did you say that we would fall and fall and fall and fall and fall apart? Why did you say that we would fall and fall and fall and fall and fall apart? To love is to lose, and to lose is to die.